You have already seen yourself fighting often with that uncomfortable feeling of intestine stuck. That constant difficulty in the evacuation that seems to get worse with the years. If you are over 60 and face this problem, know that it is not alone. Constipation affects approximately 40 to 50% of people in this age group, becoming one of the most prevalent digestive disorders, and, unfortunately, one of the most neglected, often considered only a normal part of aging. The good news: the solution to this persistent discomfort may be much more close to what you imagine, directly on your plate. Recent research reveals surprising connections between certain food and intestinal health, especially in old age. In this article, we will explore 5 foods, specifically proven properties scientifically to combat the constipation in people over 60. These are not natural laxatives of passing effect, but food options that really transform the function, intestinal, promoting lasting regularity and digestive comfort. Why does constipation increase after 60 years? Before we dive into foods that can transform your intestinal health, it is fundamental to understand why constipation becomes more common with advancing age. After 60, several factors contribute to the increase of this problem. Reduced peristalsis, the natural movements of the gut that push the stools, become less frequent and vigorous, weakening of the abdominal muscles, reducing the force necessary for the proper evacuation, reduced production of digestive enzymes and bile acids, compromising full food digestion, changes in intestinal microbiota, reduction in diversity and quantity of bacteria. Beneficial, common medicines in old age, many cause constipation as an effect. Collateral, antihypertensive, painkillers, antidepressants, among others. Dr. Marina Costa, gastroenterologist specializing in digestive health of the elderly, explains, constipation in the elderly rarely has a unique cause. It is usually multifactorial, involving physiological, nutritional, drugs and behavioral. However, the nutritional component is often the most neglected and ironically the most easily modifiable. Mr. Carlos, 78, shares his experience. I had been fighting with constipation for years. He took laxatives constantly, but it was a vicious cycle. It worked by a time, then got worse. That's when a new doctor looked at my food and suggested specific changes. In a few weeks, I got something I didn't had natural intestinal regularity without medicines. Let's now know the 5 foods that can transform this reality. Food number 1, flax seeds, the complete intestinal regulator. Flax seeds head our list for a convincing reason. They offer possibly the most perfect combination of components to combat the constipation in people over 60. Rich in soluble and insoluble fibers, mucilage, omega-3 fatty acids and lignanes, flax seeds act in multiple aspects of intestinal functioning, providing results that many describe as transformers. As flaxseed helps combat constipation, double fiber effect, the unique combination of soluble fibers which form gel and softens, and insoluble, which add volume and stimulate peristalsis, creates a synergistic action rarely found in a single food. Abundant mucilage, this gelatinous component forms a protective coating in the digestive tract, facilitating stool traffic and reducing intestinal irritation. Anti-inflammatory properties, omega-3 fatty acids and lignanes decrease inflammation of the intestinal mucosa, often present in cases of constipation. Chronic support to healthy microbiota, flax fibers serve as prebiotics, feeding the beneficial bacteria that contribute to intestinal motility. Adequate, a study published in the Journal of Gastroenterology and Hepatology accompanied 55 adults over 65 who suffered from chronic constipation. Participants, who consumed 2 tablespoons of ground flax seeds daily, for 12 weeks showed an average increase of 30% in the frequency of evacuation, improvement of 42% in the consistency of stools, measured by the Bristol scale, and significant reduction in the use of laxatives. Dr. Roberto Campos, specialist in digestive system functional medicine, explains, what makes the flaxseed so special is the combination of mechanical effects, immediate and long-term physiological benefits. While the mucilage and the fibers promote rapid relief, bioactive compounds gradually restore the function. Normal intestinal, creating a virtuous cycle. Donamata, 76, shares her transformation. I suffered from a gut for decades, even staying up to 5 days without evacuating. I had already tried several, without successful commercial fibers. My nutritionist insisted that I try ground flaxseed every day, starting with small quantities. In the early days, I noticed little difference, but after 2 weeks, I started to have more frequent and comfortable evacuations. 3 months later, I have evacuations almost daily for the first time in many years. How to incorporate flaxseed into the diet? Always ground at the time. Nutrients are better absorbed when the seed is broken, exposing it inside. Use a coffee grinder or processor. Gradual dose. Start with 1 teaspoon and gradually increase up to 1 to 2 spoons of daily soup, divided into 2 sockets. Abundant hydration. Flaxseed absorbs water, forming a gel. It is fundamental. Increase fluid intake to maximize its benefits. Versatile addition. Sprinkle over cereals, yogurt, salads or soups. It can also be mixed with juices or smoothies. Nutritionist Dr. Claudia Ferreira warns, the biggest mistake I see in the use of flax against constipation is the lack of adequate hydration. Without enough liquid, the fiber may end up getting the problem getting worse instead of solving it. The golden rule is, for each tablespoon of flaxseed, add at least 250 milliliters of extra water to your daily intake. Important tip, for elderly with swallowing or diverticulosis problems, use always finely ground and well-hydrated flaxseed to avoid complications. Food number 2, kiwi, the enzymatic regulator. Kiwi may seem just a refreshing fruit, but for people over 60 years struggling against chronic constipation, represents one of the natural interventions most effective already studied scientifically. Rich in actinidine, single enzyme, fibers, soluble and insoluble, vitamin C and antioxidants, kiwi offers an approach multifaceted to restore intestinal regularity. How kiwi helps combat constipation. Actinidine enzyme. This unique kiwi protease helps decompose proteins in digestive system, improving digestion and reducing intestinal transit time. Fibers with high water retention capacity. The specific combination of fibers in kiwi has exceptional ability to retain water, softening the stools without causing diarrhea. Stimulating motility compounds. Studies show that kiwi contains compounds that directly stimulate intestinal peristalsis. Natural prebiotics feed on specific beneficial bacteria associated with the best intestinal function and reduction of constipation. A survey published in the World Journal of Gastroenterology studied 38 adults over 65 years old diagnosed with functional constipation. Those who consumed 2 kiwis per day for 4 weeks showed 35% increase in frequency of evacuations, 41% reduction in evacuating effort and improvement significant in the consistency of stool when compared to the control group. Dr. Paula Mendez, gastroenterologist specializing in intestinal motility, explains what distinguishes the kiwi from other laxative fruits is its unique enzymatic action. While most fruits act mainly by fiber and water, the kiwi adds the enzymatic component that helps breaking poor foods, often a contributing factor for constipation in elderly with production reduced from digestive enzymes. Mr. Antonio, 83, shares his experience. I had a very prisoner and used laxatives weekly. My doctor suggested that I tried to eat 2 kiwis every day, preferably with the shell well washed. It was one suggestion that changed my life. After about 10 days, I started to notice that I was evacuating more easily and more often. Now, 6 months later, I have almost dear evacuations without any medicines. How to incorporate kiwi into the diet. Ideal consumption, 2 kiwis per day, preferably fasting in the morning or how. Last meal before bed. With peel increases the benefits. The bark contains high concentration of fiber and bioactive compounds as long as well washed, can be consumed. Consistent consumption. For lasting benefits, regular consumption is more important than the occasional amount. Gold varieties have a more sweet flavor and can be preferred by those who finds green kiwi very acidic, maintaining similar benefits. Nutritionist Dr. Carlos Eduardo Costa suggests, for the elderly with sensitivity to acidity, I recommend golden kiwi or consume green kiwi after a meal, never fasting. It is also possible to knead the kiwi and mix it with a little banana to soften the acid taste without compromising its laxative benefits. Important note, due to its actinidine content, kiwi can interact with some medicines. People who take anticoagulants or certain medications to blood pressure should consult your doctor before starting regular consumption. Food number 3, chia, the intestinal moisturizer. Chia seeds, small in size but giants for benefits, represent one of the most effective resources to combat constipation in people over 60. With capacity to absorb its weight up to 12 times in water, high-soluble fiber content, omega-3 and essential minerals, chia offers a natural and efficient solution to restore healthy intestinal functioning. How chia helps combat constipation. Hydrophilic gel formation. When exposed to liquids, chia seeds form a viscous gel that lubricates the intestine and facilitates the traffic of stool. High-quality soluble fibers. Chia contains one of the highest concentrations of mucilaginous soluble fiber found in nature, which softens the consistency of feces without causing excessive gases. Prolonged hydration of the fecal bolus. The gel formed by the chia retains water by long periods in the intestine, preventing the dryness of feces even in people who they do not consume enough liquids. Support for healthy microbiota. Chia fibers serve as a substrate for beneficial bacteria that produce short-chain fatty acids, improving health and intestinal function. A study conducted by the Federal University of São Paulo accompanied 65 adults over 70 years diagnosed with chronic constipation. The group that consumed 2 tablespoons of chia daily for 12 weeks presented 48% increase in the frequency of evacuations, a significant reduction in the use of laxatives and improvement in stool consistency compared to the control group. Dr. Fernando Almeida, gastroenterologist specializing in intestinal health of the elderly, explains, chia acts as a hydrophilic sponge in the intestine, attracting water for intestinal content and forming a lubricating gel that facilitates traffic. 2. Many elderly who suffer from dry constipation, this is exactly the mechanism necessary to restore comfortable evacuations. Dona Teresa, 79 years old, shares her transformation. I lived built, coming to spend whole weeks with abdominal discomfort. I tried various types of fibers that only caused me gases and swelling. My nutritionist suggested chia before sleep, hydrated in water. It was amazing the difference. In a few days, I started to have regular evacuations in the morning effortlessly. It is as if my intestine was unlocked. How to incorporate chia into the diet. Pre-hydration. The most effective method for constipation is to leave 1 to 2 tablespoons soaked chia in 250 milliliters of water for 15 to 20 minutes, forming a gel before consumption. Consumption before bed. For many seniors, take the chia gel before bed. It results in spontaneous evacuation the next morning. Food addition, sprinkled in yogurts, fruits, soups or salads, but always ensuring adequate hydration with the meal. Chia pudding, a palatable way to consume hydrated chia, mixing the gel with fruits or small amount of honey. Nutritionist Dr. Marcia Oliveira recommends, for ideal results against constipation, chia should always be consumed well hydrated. Many elderly make the error of only sprinkle dried seeds on food without guaranteeing enough liquid. Dry chia can even make constipation worse by absorbing liquid of the gut. Important tip, start with small quantities, 1 teaspoon, and increase gradually to 1 to 2 tablespoons a day, allowing the digestive system to adapt and avoid possible initial discomfort. Food number 4, dry plum, the proven solution. The dry plum, far beyond a traditional grandma remedy, represents one of the more scientifically validated interventions for the treatment of constipation in elderly. Rich in insoluble and soluble fibers, sorbitol, polyphenols and specific acids, plum dry offers a multifaceted approach that addresses virtually all aspects of aging-related constipation. As the dry plum helps combat constipation, natural sorbitol, this unable to be absorbed acts as a smooth osmotic laxative, attracting water to the gut and stimulating peristalsis. Specific fibers, the particular combination of dry plum fibers prove to be more effective against constipation than equivalent quantities of fiber from other sources. Phenolic compounds act as natural stimulants of intestinal motility and have beneficial anti-inflammatory properties for the colon. Chlorogenic and neochlorogenic acid, compounds that directly stimulate the intestinal contractions similar to some medications, but without effects. Collaterals, a survey published in Alimentary Pharmacology and Therapeutics evaluated 120 adults over 65 with functional constipation. Participants who consumed 50 g of dry plum, approximately 5 to 6 plums, daily during 8 weeks experienced an average increase of 58% in the frequency of evacuations, significant improvement in stool consistency and reduced use of laxatives in comparison with the group that received psychum fiber supplements. Dr. Carla Mendez, gastroenterologist and researcher in functional nutrition, explains what makes the plum dry a superior treatment for constipation is its multimodal action. While most treatments act by a single mechanism, the dry plum combines osmotic, stimulant and lubricant effects as well as offer prebiotic benefits to microbiota. It's like having several medicines in a single natural food. Mr. Paolo, 85, shares his experience. I have suffered from constipation for years and I had already tried several medicines which caused me cramps or worked only for a short time. My new doctor suggested a simple glass of juice, plum every morning fasting. I thought it would be another frustrated attempt, but in just 3 days, I started to feel a difference. Today, 6 months later, I keep my routine with juice and I have regularity that I haven't experienced for decades. How to incorporate dry plum into the diet. Direct consumption, 5 to 6 dry plums daily, preferably hydrated. Previously, homemade plum juice, leave 8 to 10 plums in 500 milliliters of water at night. Beat in the blender in the morning and fasting. Homemade jam, lightly cook the plums in water, creating a jam, without the addition of sugar, which can be consumed as dessert. Plum puree, for elderly with chewing difficulty, plums can be processed in puree and added to cereals or yogurts. Nutritionist Dr. Roberto Santa suggests, for elderly people with diabetes or worried with sugar content, I recommend consuming smaller quantities, 3 to 4 plums, along with a source of protein or healthy fat, which slows down sugar but maintains the laxative benefits. Important note, because it contains oxalates, people with a history of kidney stones should consult your doctor before starting regular consumption of significant quantities of prune. Food number 5, kefir, the microbiota restorer. Completing our list of transformative foods to combat constipation. After 60, we have kefir, a fermented drink that goes far beyond a simple probiotic. Rich in several beneficial bacteria strains, yeast, enzymes, digestive and bioactive compounds, kefir represents a revolutionary approach to restore intestinal function through the recovery of the intestinal microbiome. Often committed to the elderly, how kefir helps combat constipation. Restoration of the intestinal microbiota provides multiple beneficial bacteria strains that recolonize the gut and promote healthy motility. Living digestive enzymes, facilitate the digestion of proteins and carbohydrates, preventing the accumulation of poorly digested material that contributes to constipation. Production of short-chain fatty acids, kefir bacteria produce compounds that nourish intestinal cells and stimulate peristaltic movements. Intestinal anti-inflammatory effect reduces inflammation of the mucosa that often accompanies chronic constipation in the elderly. A study published in the Journal of Medicinal Food accompanied 93 adults with more of 65 years who suffered from chronic constipation. The group that consumed 200 milliliters of kefir daily for 12 weeks showed an average increase of 37% in the frequency evacuations, significant improvement in the consistency of stools, reduction of colonic transit and decreased symptoms of abdominal distension. Dr. Luciana Ferreira, specialist in intestinal microbiota and aging, explains many cases of constipation in the elderly originate from dysbiosis, a intestinal microbiota imbalance. With advancing age, changes in the diet, medicines and reduction of immunity modify the intestinal bacterial composition, often reducing species that promote healthy traffic. The kefir offers a unique approach by providing not only probiotics, but a complete microbial ecosystem. Dona Clara, 75, shares her transformation. I fought against constipation years and had already experienced various types of commercial fibers and probiotics with limited results. My granddaughter started preparing homemade kefir and encouraged me to take a small cup every morning. At first I felt a slight increase in gases, but after 2 weeks, I began to notice that my gut worked with much more ease. In 2 months, I already had daily evacuations for the first time in many years. How to incorporate kefir into the diet. Daily consumption, 150 to 200 milliliters per day, preferably fasting or between meals. To maximize intestinal colonization, homemade kefir, the home-prepared version, contains greater diversity of beneficial microorganisms and is free of additives. Non-dairy versions, for lactose intolerant or vegan, there are excellent water kefir options, coconut or other plant substrates. Gradual introduction, start with small quantities, 30 to 50 milliliters, and increase gradually to avoid initial digestive discomfort. Nutritionist Dr. Marcos Silva warns, for real benefits against constipation, it is essential to choose kefir that contains active living cultures. Many commercial products, they are pasteurized after fermentation, eliminating most probiotics. Check the label or ideally prepare at home from living kefir grains. Important consideration: immunocompromised people or in treatment with immunosuppressors should consult their doctor before starting regular consumption of concentrated probiotics such as kefir. How to create a personalized anti-constipation strategy. Now that we know the 5 transformative foods to combat constipation after 60 years, let's understand how to combine them in a strategy. Practical and personalized. Basic protocol: anti-constipation for elderly. Morning fasting, 200 milliliters of kefir or plum juice prepared the night before. Breakfast, 1 tablespoon of chia seeds or hydrated flaxseed. Mid-morning, 2 kiwis consumed with the shell if possible. Lunch, include more soluble and insoluble fibers in vegetables and whole grains. Ensure adequate hydration during the meal. Afternoon snack, 3 to 5 hydrated dried plums or a chia pudding. A cup of hot tea to stimulate peristalsis. To have lunch, mild meal including any of the 5 anti-constipation foods. Avoid heavy meals that overload the digestive system during sleep. Gastroenterologist Dr. Fernanda Mello recommends, for faster results and effective, I suggest an initial period of intestinal reset of 21 days, where at least 3 of these foods are consumed daily in therapeutic quantities, together with abundant hydration. After this period, most elderly are already experiencing significant standardization of intestinal function. Adaptations for specific conditions. For diabetics, moderate dry plum consumption, no more than 2 to 3 units at a time. Emphasize seeds of chia, flaxseed and kefir without added sugar. Consume kiwi along with proteins to mitigate glycemic impact. For hypertensives, all 5 foods are safe and beneficial. Opt for low-sodium kefir. Take advantage of the positive effect of flaxseed on blood pressure. For those who take multiple medications, consult a doctor about possible interactions, especially with kefir. Separate schedules between medicines and consumption of chia, flaxseed to avoid absorption interference. Maintain consistent consumption of plum to avoid constipation induced by medicine. In addition to food, potentiate habits. To maximize the benefits of anti-constipation foods, some habits complementary are fundamental. Adequate hydration. Dr. Christina Alves, a nephrologist, emphasizes insufficient hydration is possibly the most impactful factor in the constipation of the elderly. For each gram of fiber consumed, approximately 150 milliliters of extra water is required. The minimum recommended for elderly with constipation is 30 milliliters of liquid per kilogram of body weight, distributed to over the day. Evacuating routine. Gastroenterologist Dr. Paulo Menezes explains, our body responds strongly. Routines. Create a regular time for attempted evacuation, preferably after a meal. Taking advantage of the gastrocolic reflex significantly increases the chances of success. The ideal time for most people is after coffee from morning. Correct positioning. Use a small seat under the feet during evacuation to simulate the position of conkers, which naturally aligns the rectum and facilitates the passage of feces with less effort. When seeking professional help, although the foods mentioned can bring significant benefits to the most cases of constipation, is important to recognize when medical help is necessary. Constipation that suddenly arises and persists. Presence of blood in the stool. Intense abdominal pain associated with constipation. Frequent alternation between diarrhea and constipation. Unlawful weight loss along with alteration of intestinal habit. Geriatrician Dr. Ricardo Santos emphasizes, most cases of functional constipation in the elderly, but should not delay investigation of warning signals that may indicate more serious conditions. Conclusion, a new chapter of intestinal comfort. When we complete our journey through the 5 transforming foods to combat constipation, seeds of flaxseed, kiwi, kia, dry plum and kefir, it is evident that nature offers us powerful solutions to restore healthy functioning of the intestine even after 60 years. As sums up Dr. Helena Castro, medical specialist in integrative medicine, constipation should not be accepted as a normal part of aging. With the correct nutritional approach, the vast majority of the elderly can recover the natural intestinal regularity without laxative dependence. Not just improves digestive comfort, but positively impacts quality of life as a whole. Imagine waking up in the morning knowing that your gut will work effortlessly or discomfort. Visualize yourself free from constant concern with intestinal irregularity, dependence on laxative drugs and abdominal discomfort that often accompanies constipation. Think about rediscovering the feeling of lightness and well-being that comes from a digestive system working harmoniously. This is not an empty promise, but a concrete possibility for most elderly who suffer from chronic constipation. And the best starts with choices. How about starting today? Perhaps with a portion of hydrated kia at Café da morning, 2 kiwis in the middle of the morning, or a refreshing kefir glass before bed. Your gut and your quality of life thank you.